Welcome back to the Stuff or Whatever podcast. Your host, B. Quanchi here, and let's get down to it. So, I want to start off this podcast talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie. I talked about it a bit. I did like a reaction, thoughts about the Nintendo Direct. I think a lot of people had a lot of opinions too, but it's been about a week and I had some like few little afterthoughts about it. So, I think that might be a good place to start. Because my initial reaction is, I think a lot of people too thought the voice casting for the Super Mario Brothers movie was a little bit outrageous. There was a lot of people laughing and all that because you had Chris Pratt and Seth Rogen and Jack Black. And to me, my gut reaction was it felt like they just got whatever A-list actors they can get, and it was more about who they can put on a movie, whose name they can put on a movie. So it seemed kind of weird, like maybe it wasn't the best roles or whatever, but we'll have to wait and see. But I kind of, thought about it more and maybe a little more optimistic. Because we went back before when earlier details about the movie started. Like when they announced it was being done by Illumination, a lot of people were like, oh, those are the Minion people and stuff like that. And kind of cringe or had their reservations or concerns about the movie. And I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of Illumination movies, although a lot of them are like the big successful. They make a lot of money, like Despicable Me, Minions. So, like it or not, they do make ass load of money. And but also like subjectively looking at them, they are really good animated movies. They take a lot of care and talent into the animation film. I haven't watched too many before, besides like what I'm seen in bits and pieces or like in advertising. I think the only Illumination movie I really sat down to see was the Lorax. I believe that was done by them, and I enjoyed that. I thought it was a good movie. Also, I know they just came out. They're coming out with the second Adam Family movie, and I think those look good too. I know people will kind of get concerned about those, or I don't know. It's kind of weird, like I guess with today with people on the internet, people can easily have a negative opinion, or if they don't 100% love it, then they hate it, kind of thing. But I think from what I've seen, I haven't seen the first one, but what I've seen with the newer animated and a family movie, they look good too. So I think that's kind of like where my mind's at, thinking like, hey, I was kind of like taken back or had these concerns. Because also it also makes you think Mario related, but a little bit different. But I remember when they announced Mario and Rabbids, the game with them all together to shoot the Mushroom Kingdom. I forget what the exact name is, like Super Mario and Rabbids Mushroom Kingdom. But then that turned out to be really good. I really liked it, but I think it's also one of those things that not everyone's a huge fan, but it's really good series, and I think it surprised a lot of people. And the sequel's coming out next year, so I also think that about the game is something that seems really weird and weird choices and things are not going to work. So I think I'm taking that mindset with the voice casting to the Super Mario Brothers movie. Yeah, because whether or not this movie's going to be successful, it is going to be big and it's going to make a whole lot of money, whether we love it or hate it. I don't know if it's some of the more Mario fans, all that, because I think some of the choices are more for a general audience. Like they want to get butts in the seat, but it's Mario. They're gonna get butts in the seats anyway, or whatever. Who knows? A year from now, I'm not sure if they're still gonna do like streaming releases or if theaters are gonna be more the normal or back to the normal now. But I know some movies, like a lot of people, would just rather stay at home and watch it. But we'll have to see. So it may be really surprisingly good. It may be kind of a train wreck. I think overall it's gonna be a good looking movie, and these are big celebrities, years of experience. So it's at least it's not like an amateur hour when it comes to choosing the voice cast. So we had our laughs, we had our chuckles, and all that. But I'm gonna have some optimism. I know it's over a year away before the movie comes out, and maybe we'll see a trailer for it early next year. They might drop a trailer for the holiday season because a lot of people watch movies and stuff like that. So maybe they're waiting a few months because animation takes a lot, and it feels like if they're almost a year away, they should have a lot done and hopefully something to show us soon. So we'll see. And one last thing I wanted to mention, because I heard, I know Shigeru Miyamoto, who created Mario and Zelda, the big Nintendo guy that everyone loves. I feel like since he's so involved with the movie, it's gonna be good. I think, especially him and like Nintendo have the expectation, especially with the main properties and stuff like that. I'm not sure how involved he is, like what say he has, but I just remember back hearing like stories or just I don't know if like a did you know gaming video or something like that, but talk about how Miyamoto would like really be hands on in the early days and even later, like when they consult with him, like he'll make a suggestion, but it's like not a suggestion. It's like that's how you need to do things. Like change this. So I think there's even been like a time or so that he kind of like swooped in and like saved the game by like programming it or fixing it up from the ground up or whatever. But basically, it feels like Miyamoto's a person who has those kind of expectations for quality and stuff like that. So hopefully, get that Nintendo seal of approval. I remember that back in the day, they used to put that on all the games and stuff like that. But I guess part of me is wondering if Miyamoto is really in touch with pop culture in America for like the English cast. So who knows? But hopefully the movie would be good. And I think after the initial like announcement shock, if you can call that a thing, I think like well, hopefully it's going to be very good. But it just seems really weird looking at it right now that besides because this doesn't be seen about the movie, just now heard about the voice cast and the Illuminations animating it. It's gonna be interesting to see, but hopefully it does the series justice and help a lot of people enjoy it, especially like the big fans who've been really amped up about it. Okay, and a small thing I wanted to mention because it's something I done recently. I'm not too much of a cook, but I actually tried to make home curry, and it turned out really, really good. And it actually seems a lot easier to make. Sometimes these recipes seem like intimidating because I like curry takeout and all that, but basically just got a can of coconut milk, a whole lot of curry powder, chicken broth. I did cook chicken with it too, and like garlic powder, salt, pepper, onion powder. I did put besides the chicken, potatoes and broccoli. They're really good. It made about 6 servings and it cost like probably less than my usual takeout order. So I thought that was kind of fun and a lot easier to make than I thought it would be. I don't think next time to get more. Well, I recently made sure I have minced garlic because I never have it on hand. I know my mom uses it a lot, like for cooking and sauces and stuff like that. So I think next time I'll put some minced garlic in it. I've seen places put like chopped onions. Well, maybe not chopped, more like slices, not that finely chopped. But onions. I've seen carrots. I've seen baby corn and bell peppers. But I'm not sure how much I'm going to add to it. It's one of those fun things that there's not a specific way. Like you have to have these specific ingredients. You can just kind of do whatever you want. So just kind of like a little blurb, and if people find that interesting or want to try that, it's not that hard to do. And another thing I want to talk about, I don't mention it too much, but I do live in Arizona, and lately there's been a lot of advertising about sports betting, like those apps and websites where you can bet on sports. Because I believe it just became legal. I think it was in the 2020 election, like a prop or something, but we have like legal sports betting now. And I think they got everything in place in terms of like, I know it's like one of those things like if something passes, it doesn't immediately like overnight becomes available. Like recreational marijuana, we have that too in Arizona, and basically it's like, hey, it passed a vote, but I think there's like some like legislation or legal stuff or processing or getting licenses or whatever. So it's not like it's you can do it the next day. But a lot of sports betting, I've been hearing that on websites and Facebook social media feeds, on the radio, on billboards, even billboards as I'm driving to work. But it's kind of a funny observation. And I'm not sure how big the sports app is throughout the U.S., but I know in Arizona, I think just because it's been newly passed and set up, it's been really something they've been pushing about. Okay, I did this in the last podcast, but I found some news stories, so I'm going to do it again. I'm going to call it I think I said it, the Whatever Report. So I found some fun news stories to talk about. So here's my little segment that I called the Whatever Report. So the first story I have is regarding Skittles, and the big thing is they're bringing back the lime flavor to the original packs. So a lot of people really love the lime flavor because they know. I'm looking at an article. It was actually back in 2013 that they replaced it with green apple, and yeah, it was introduced in 1979. We have lime for them many years. In 2013, it was switched with green apple, and I'm not sure if this means that green apple is going to be kicked out from this little article I read. It's gonna be back to the original and the sour packs of Skittles. Cause I know they have some of those like tropical whatever fruit flavors too. The only thing I've seen is that it's gonna be this fall is when we're gonna see that again. So I haven't seen anything yet besides this article, but basically lime Skittles are coming back. Okay, next story is a man armed with a bow and arrow carjacks a woman in Atlanta. So that's kind of a weird weapon of choice, but just reading this story, it's one of those like really nice bows. So it's not like an old school like Zelda, Legend of Zelda bow or whatever, but it's like one of those metal bows, composite, whatever thing. But I guess shooting arrows at the windshield and stuff like that, and it seems like just reading through the story that it just seems like a lot of people like taken back, like the driver. They've never seen anyone with like a bow and arrow, but I guess he did successfully carjack the car, and then later drove it underneath the underpass and crashed a car or something like that, or nearby. If I get the exact details, I'm re-skimming it, but basically got in a car accident and even shot by a police officer because he wasn't like putting the weapon down or anything like that. Um, but yeah, this is kind of a weird story. I'm not sure why he would think that would be a good weapon of choice to carjack a car or what his end game was, but yes, it sounds like someone successfully carjacked a person with a bow and arrow, even though they crashed late and got arrested and all that, and even shot. But yeah, kind of a funny story. And next, this is food related once again, but it looks like there's plans to bring flaming hot Doritos and Cheetos hot sauces. So from seeing, it's not like really too much. So it's more like a rumor than anything else. There was a Instagram post about it, seeming that they don't want to reveal too much information. So we'll see what happens with it. It just seemed like it's kind of like mock-up images of like the hot sauces with like the Cheetos label and the Doritos labels and all that. So I'm not sure what's going to come of it. And I'm not sure if it's like one of those things that, hey, it's just a hot sauce and they slap a brand on it. So it's not like Cheetos flavored or whatever. It is like, hey, you see the label for Cheetos hot, flaming hot and all that. So I'm not sure if this is going to be a thing, but it's been making rumors, but Cheetos and Doritos flavored hot sauces. And last story for the Whatever Report is a woman calls in a bomb threat on a factory because she wanted to spend time with a boyfriend. So look at this story. It took place in Pittsville, Maine, and it was a Puritan medical products factory. And basically, I guess some calls made some bomb threats, but she later told police that she did, because basically they were able to trace a call and track back to her and all that. It looks like she that was charged with felony terrorizing and all that. So it's like a felony too. So don't call them bomb threats. It's like, yeah, it's saying felony terrorizing charges, and besides that, there's like a $1,500 bail. Yeah, but not too much. But basically, somebody wanted to see your boyfriend so badly or whatever. I'm not sure what the stories is, but yeah, if I had a significant other calling bomb threats to get me off work so they could hang out and stuff like that, I'm gonna get a new significant other. But yeah, that does it for the Whatever Report. I'm going to try to maybe do this more on a regular basis. I'm still looking at other sources and other fun stories to get. If you'd like me to drop links, let me know. I just feel like right now, since I don't have much of a following, I'm probably not going to do too much, but try to bring up some fun stories that come across every now and then. Okay, and this is also something I kind of want to rant about, and thought maybe it'll be a good topic of a discussion, but basically working in customer service, and yeah, it can be really tough. I actually never really worked retail besides like overnight stocking, so I haven't, or fast food. But I did work at a call center, and it's almost just as bad. But you're not facing the customer actually, so it's kind of that nice as well. And honestly, I feel a little guilty saying it, but it's sometimes like, oop, bad connection, kind of hung up on a customer. But it's like more, I actually try to strive to be, very knowledgeable, very helpful as I can. Sometimes it's some things you can't help, and some people just don't have that kind of sense or just won't have the understanding. So I even though I'm honest, like this time, like a call dropped, for my benefit, I usually do my best to kind of, help people out, things like that. But yeah, I think what kind of sucks with a job is that there's so many times that things are out of your control. For example, since I was working for a credit card company, there's been times like the person can't get a credit line increase, or they had late fees or interest we couldn't waive, or the way past due and wanted to use their card for a purchase, or even over the limit, and we couldn't make that happen. Usually that's the case. It just kind of depends, but for people who don't have a credit card or have one, um, it's really good to have, but you always want to make sure you have a good available credit. You want to make sure it's current. Try not to have too much so it's not too difficult to keep track of. But yeah, how to deal with a lot of fun things. And it's one of those things that you do have some moments where you feel like really helping somebody or whatever. It is kind of rewarding in itself, but then sometimes it just feels like, and sometimes it also can be based on the company and training and stuff like that too. Because I hate calling customer service because sometimes I feel like you're just reading a script or they don't care that much and stuff like that. Not to be like the whole "I'm the customer, I'm right" and all that. And that's I'm not sure if that's really a mindset that people still have. Like it feels like back in the day when I was a kid, like seeing in TV shows, the customer, like TV shows and cartoons and stuff like that the customer is always right and stuff like that, and it's always like kissing up to the customer. But I found like the customer is wrong, or they are usually mistaken. And I believe it's like one of those things like kindness begets kindness and all that stuff. Customers are really cool and good. Treat them the same way, and I find that it's easier to have a good attitude versus being negative from either side. So I didn't like expect to get phone calls just to be bitched out or cussed out or things like that. So try to make the best of the situation, but this is sometimes it's just like, I think those who work customer service, whether it be face to face retail or call center and all that, probably know what I'm talking about. And one thing I wanted to talk about, speaking of customer service, is I'm not sure if all companies do this, but when they say calls are being recorded for quality assurance purposes, I mean, a big aspect when I was working there is that we'll get calls pulled. Like, I think it kind of toned down because I know that with because I ended up leaving my job after at the call center during the pandemic. But there's times when this use call volumes too. But I think they would usually try to get 5 calls a month, like pulled and graded by a special team. I think it went down to 3 or whatever. But it's like one of the things like they score them, and it's not as bad as people think. Like they think, oh, I'm going to give them a bad review or stuff like that. That they're going to get fired. Because also like we get stats in from like surveys and stuff like that too. And the only thing about the surveys too is that it's like one of those things that if we can't like do something for the customer, whether it's against policy, something that's out of our power, stuff like that, like they couldn't get a credit line increase, they can't use the card, whatever. Like the survey, from what I was told, like breaks down like questions towards the company itself and then question towards the representative you spoke to. And of course, if they're not going to get what they want, they're always going to vote down or whatever, give them a negative survey or feedback. And it kind of sucks, but it doesn't affect you too at least from working, it didn't affect too much. Like there was things like top performers got a little incentive and like a special lunch every month and stuff like that with other top performers from whatever departments. Because there's a lot of departments too where I worked at. So there's a good side of getting those good reviews, but it's not like it's a job killer, like whatever. Of course, if there's things that are like totally out of line, and then those can be like write-ups and stuff like that too. And also, like, if you keep on getting negative surveys, like, it's not the one person, it's like the probably the representative. If they get so many negative surveys and even uh, graded calls or whatever you want to call them, that yeah, that can be on grounds for termination. It would have to be like really bad, like you have to be really bad at your job and not care. So it's not like one bad review was going to kill someone's career. And that reminds me, one a show I really liked. I think it was short lived, but it was on Comedy Central called Corporate. Basically, like just kind of like The Office, but actually funny. Yeah, I went there. But there was a really good episode about reviewing the agent or whatever. Like it's not the main characters, but like the start of the episode, like they get a new car, like two of them, whatever, and like the resident they make sure you do rate me 5 stars or whatever, and then they even like doesn't do the survey, but they keep on like calling and hassling him. And it's funny, like they would say like anything less than 5 stars it would be considered failure or something like that. It's a really fun episode because I just related with it a lot. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny with call reviews and stuff like that. But I think one thing I wanted to mention, like my last note about working customer service, is that the thing that really kills me sometimes, especially with a lot of people like who work at it or more frontline, take a lot of shit from a lot of crappy people. Not all the time, but I feel like a lot of times management or whatever take the side of the customer, even though they're clearly in the wrong, and that's where it really sucks. I think you hear about like job shortages and it could be like pay hours, all that, but I think if more management would take more sides with their workers and employees, even in front of the customers, like, hey, that's out of line and stuff like that too. Because especially when the customers are clearly in the wrong or they don't give the employee the benefit of doubt, I think that's what discourages a lot of people, at least in my mind. But yeah, it is because that's what I felt like when I got this call reviews and that where I graded and stuff like that. So one of those things like it's a shitty situation, there's no way I can make it positive and all that. Like, oh, I got a bad review and whatever. Because even back in the day, they changed the policies, but I'm sure the call center super we actually got incentive pays, like we got bonus pays depending on how many good calls we had. Um, it kind of started as a system like each grading was worth a certain amount to your paycheck. It was kind of fixed, and then became like more, I guess, competitive. I can't remember the details, but it's like the higher rank you have, the more incentive pay you would get. But they actually did away with that too, so that kind of sucked. Yeah, but yeah, it kind of also made me think of a meme I seen before, like with three doors, and like one door would be have $1 billion, and second door would be restart your life with all your known knowledge, or three, tell customer what you really feel, and like they kick down the third door. So I know it kind of sucks that we can't really speak our minds, or oh, it's kind of weird. You say defend ourselves too when it comes to customer service, because and again, I think for the most part, being a decent person takes not that much effort, but being an asshole bitch can take a lot. And I don't know, it's really off-putting, and it takes its toll on you too. But I feel like if management would take more side, give more benefit of doubt to the employee, then that would be go a long way, especially with like worker retention and turnover and stuff like that too. But my little soapbox about working customer service. Okay, and another subject for this podcast. And the funny thing, like with these podcasts, I just kind of write down a list in my notebook about stuff to talk about or bring up. So it may seem a little random or whatever, it's the stuff, whatever podcast. But it kind of does that help to kind of like collect things and say, hey, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I even been to the point that I put notes in my phone if I'm don't have a pen and paper or like at work. Because when it's thinking, oh, that'd be fun to talk about, and then you forget it in the next hour or so. I guess the people who do like to create stuff, whether it be a podcast or whatever videos, write down your ideas. You have a phone usually in your hand, so use that note app to write down stuff. But the one thing I wanted to talk about is life after death, because out of people have probably want to share their opinions. There's a comment section below too, but I think for me it seems really almost scary sometimes just because it's very unknown. Because for me, I have three ideas for what happens after we pass on. And a little get a background. I did grow up Catholic. I went to church almost every Sunday until I was 18. So all that, but I'm not really religious all these days much. All that, but I like to think this. Well, I don't want to say I like to think, but out of what happens, I think one thing is like the whole like afterlife. For lack of a better word, like heaven. That you go to a nice place, a nice pleasant place, a good place. Pretty much you see all the imagery, that with angels in heaven and stuff like that. I don't know about hell too, like heaven and hell, but regardless, like there's some kind of afterlife. Speaking of afterlife, there's that one show. I know it ended, but The Good Place. I think that is a fun take on what happens after you die. So I kind of watch that. If anyone has good feedback about that show, I'll be hearing in the comments below. But first thought is that this afterlife, whether it be like a traditional heaven or just whatever takes place after you pass on. The second idea is this, like if you are like reincarnated. I'm not, again, I grew up Catholic, so I don't too much about reincarnation, but I kind of like the idea of like your soul cycling back into another being, whether it be another human being or an animal or creature, I don't know, but it's kind of like where your soul or spirit goes right after you pass on. You kind of start over, not with like your memories. I don't know, you see the crazy stories, whether you believe them or not, of people saying, "Oh, I was this in my past life," or "was that," or you came across one that there was like a woman who it wasn't like afterlife, but something happened, like when we came out of coma or something, and all of a sudden she had visions or knowledge of being someone in Egypt a long time ago, like royalty, and was able to tell what different artifacts were or stuff like that too. Like those weird, bizarre stories, but it's some kind of way that you come back and start over a new life. And third one, and I think this why I get a little, for lack of a better word, scared, is that nothing happens after you die. Like it's just blackness, is no anything. So, and it doesn't really matter because when you look about it, there's like no proof of a spirit. There's no proof of a soul. I think when it comes like concrete, like physical proof, there's no physical soul. There's no physical spirit. There's no physical consciousness. And consciousness is just like a word or whatever term we did to label how we function mentally. Because when you look at our minds, our brain are just a lump of meat inside a skull and all that. I try to think of a more creative metaphor, but basically, every thought we have, every dream, every conscious thing, whatever, is all just a big pile of meat inside our heads, and that's it. But with all these nerves and brain cells and all that, it's kind of really fascinating. I'm not sure if there's ever a good like documentary, like or books, whatever, explaining how the mind works, how the brain works. That it's just an organ, but it does so much, and it's weird that it's very different from different people. Like people have different ways of thinking, different ideas, different levels of intelligence, common sense, whatever. But I think also kind of going off on a tangent, I think that's why a lot of people hang on or like they follow the supernatural, like for example, ghost or communicating to the afterlife, whether it be like a fortune teller or a Ouija board or whatever. Because I think if you had that, hey, I'm talking to my dead relative, I'm talking to the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, or I'm talking to whatever spirit, or tracking down like a lost ghost, whatever, that's like, oh, that's proof that something happens, that you are still, whether it be your consciousness or your soul or spirit, whatever you want to call it, that it still exists. And there is possibly afterlife or a way to pass on to the next life. So I wonder how much influence that has. I think maybe the reason like so many people try to chase down like ghosts or proof or paranormal or whatever is that they just, not only because some people think it's like, oh, that's creepy and fascinating and cool or whatever, but it's just like a way to confirm, hey, stuff is out there after we pass on. So when we unfortunately all pass away, either we shut down of old age, organs shut down, all that, or something unfortunate happens and life is over. we have no way of knowing what happens afterwards. And even like people who have like near death experiences or go into coma and they come back and like I saw my what happens, whatever. We just can't know that to be true. It could be like maybe the mind or memories or whatever. But does somebody say, "Oh, I almost died. I saw the afterlife, but I came back"? We have no idea proving that's true, and that we can't have that experience ourselves. And it's probably different from person to person who goes in comas or have those kind of near death experiences and all that. So it's like we are never going to know what's going to happen after we pass on. And I don't know if that's a fun discussion, a fun way to kind of end this podcast and all that, but I thought it was something that trying to get my brain, just want to get those ideas out there. My little stupid brain just want to think, hey, what happens after we go? And it's, yeah, like I said, it's weird. There's no way to prove what happens. We don't know if we actually have a soul or a spirit that moves on. It could just be like, once you die, black, and that's it. Fade to black and nothing more. But yeah, I think that's going to be a good podcast for this week. I have other ideas. I might do more like random stuff I wrote down and topics and stuff like that. Always, I always want to try to mention this more often, but subscribe, comment below. I'm on Twitter. I try to stream on Twitch, so follow me. I appreciate feedback, and if it is ever like more engagement, like that'd be fun too, in terms of these podcasts. But just kind of doing whatever and stuff or whatever, and seeing what happens. So I hope someone enjoys. But it's kind of like I said, I'm gonna try not to mention this on every podcast, but I do see that weird kind of growth on the channel, but don't really see much going on, like especially with content I'm more recently coming out with. So my recent uploads and stuff like that, it's like almost doesn't matter, but maybe someday it does. And I don't know, I have to go through the channel because I'm probably at the end of the year, early next year, might get rid of some of the really old content that just seems really doesn't quite fit what I would want this channel moving forward. It's really old stuff, but I don't know. But yeah, so thanks for watching, listening, whatever, and have a good day. Later.